America's tourist attractions kill people at a rate that the tourism industry does not feature prominently in its marketing materials. These are not obscure backcountry locations. They are places that appear in travel guides, on bucket lists, and on social media feeds that millions of people visit every year and that have killed visitors with a consistency that the death tolls alone make difficult to explain away as freak accidents. These are the 13 deadliest tourist attractions in America. Number 13. Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Big Island, Hawaii. Hawaii. Volcanoes National Park receives approximately 1.5 to 2 million visitors annually and covers approximately 333,000 acres of one of the most actively volcanic landscapes on Earth. Kilauea, one of the most continuously active volcanoes in the world, has been erupting in some form for much of the past 4 decades, and the park provides access to lava fields, volcanic craters, and a landscape that is actively being created in real time. The visual experience is genuinely extraordinary. The specific hazards are specific. Lava entry points where molten rock enters the ocean produce lays, a caustic plume of hydrochloric acid, steam, and tiny sharp glass fragments from the rapidly cooled lava that causes respiratory damage at concentrations that the wind can distribute unpredictably. Lava tube roofs are unstable and can collapse without warning in newly formed sections of lava field. Volcanic gases, sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, accumulate in low-lying terrain and enclosed spaces at concentrations that are immediately dangerous. The NPS issues regular gas advisories. The advisories are not always seen by visitors who enter the park at points distant from the visitor center where they are posted. During the 2018 Lower East Rift Zone eruption, which occurred outside the park's boundaries but within the same volcanic system, lava flows destroyed approximately 700 homes and created new hazards in areas that had been considered stable residential land. The park itself has recorded deaths from lava bench collapses, where newly formed lava land at the ocean's edge breaks away and drops visitors into the water, along with thousands of tons of unstable rock, with insufficient warning time for anyone standing on the bench when it fails. Number 12. Lake Mead, Nevada/Arizona border. Lake Mead is the largest reservoir in the United States by volume when full, formed by Hoover Dam on the Colorado River, and it is one of the most visited national recreation areas in the country, with approximately 7 to 8 million visitors annually. The recreation area offers boating, swimming, and water sports in a desert setting within driving distance of Las Vegas. It also averages approximately 150 search and rescue operations and roughly 20 to 25 fatalities per year, numbers that are consistent across years in the NPS safety data. The specific danger profile of Lake Mead is complex. Boating accidents account for a significant portion of fatalities. The combination of hot weather, alcohol, high-speed boats, and a lake surface that extends far enough that people underestimate distances and weather changes produces consistent boating mortality. Drowning of non-boating swimmers, particularly in the rocky coves along the shoreline, reflects the specific hydraulics of a reservoir whose water level has been declining dramatically due to the Colorado River Basin's ongoing drought conditions, which has exposed terrain, changed water depths, and created new hazards that the infrastructure, boat ramps, swimming areas, warning buoys, was built for different water levels. The drought-driven lake level decline has also exposed a specific additional hazard. As the lake dropped approximately 175 feet from its full pool level by 2022, multiple sets of human remains were exposed at the former lake bottom, some associated with gunshot wounds, suggesting that Lake Mead's historical function as a deposition site for Las Vegas organized crime victims is more than a rumor. Number 11. The Appalachian Trail, Georgia to Maine. The Appalachian Trail is a continuous footpath extending approximately 2,190 miles from Springer Mountain in northern Georgia to Mount Katahdin in central Maine, passing through 14 states and the full range of Appalachian terrain that those states contain. Approximately 2 to 3 million people access some portion of the trail annually: day hikers, section hikers, and weekend backpackers. And approximately 3,000 people per year attempt a through hike from one end to the other, of whom roughly 1/3 complete the full distance in a continuous journey. The trail's mortality record is distributed across its full length and across causes that reflect the different hazards of different sections. The southern AT, Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, is relatively accessible terrain where the primary risks are falls on wet rocky sections, lightning exposure on exposed ridges during summer thunderstorm season, and the specific danger of hypothermia in the shoulder seasons when hikers are on trail in conditions they didn't prepare for. The northern AT, particularly the White Mountains of New Hampshire, the Mahoosic Range, and the final approach to Katahdin, presents significantly more severe terrain and weather. The White Mountains include above treeline travel on exposed ridges, where the Weather Observatory on Mount Washington has recorded sustained winds exceeding 100 miles per hour on approximately 110 days per year on average. The record wind speed ever recorded at a land-based weather station, 231 miles per hour, was recorded at Mount Washington summit on April 12, 1934. That weather station sits directly above the trail. The specific danger for through hikers in the Whites is the combination of physical exhaustion from months of hiking, inadequate gear for the conditions that the alpine terrain can produce, and the speed with which conditions can deteriorate above treeline. Mount Katahdin's knife edge, the summit approach along a narrow exposed ridge that constitutes the final miles of the trail for northbound through hikers, concentrates the combination of technical terrain, exposure, and the psychological weight of approaching a journey's end in a place that has no interest in that emotional narrative. People fall on the knife edge. People are struck by lightning on Katahdin. The mountain closes to access when conditions deteriorate, which is the correct policy and does not eliminate the incidents that occur before conditions reach the closure threshold. Number 10. Yosemite National Park, California. Yosemite receives approximately 4 million visitors annually and has recorded more than 1,000 documented deaths since records began, a figure that averages approximately 15 deaths per year in more recent decades. The causes break down into a few specific categories. Falls, the leading cause, concentrated at the waterfall overlooks and valley walls. Drowning in the Merced River, driven by cold water temperature and the hydraulic forces immediately below waterfalls. And medical emergencies, primarily cardiac events among older visitors attempting elevation change hikes with inadequate fitness assessment. The Merced River deaths deserve specific attention. The river's waterfalls, Vernal Fall, Nevada Fall, and others have a consistent pattern of victims. People who wade into the river upstream of the falls at what appears to be a safe point, lose their footing in the current, and are carried to the brink before they or anyone nearby can respond. The river's current in peak snowmelt season, May and June, is significantly stronger than it appears from the bank. The granite river bottom provides less traction than it appears. The speed between standing in the river and going over the falls is measured in seconds, not minutes. The NPS installs warning signs and barriers and replaces them after flooding every year. As former Yosemite ranger and author Michael P. Giglieri, who documented national park fatalities extensively, noted, "People die in Yosemite because the park is beautiful enough to make them forget it's also completely indifferent to whether they live." Number 9. Zion National Park, Utah. Zion National Park received approximately 4.7 million visitors in 2021, making it among the most visited national parks in the system, and it records approximately 15 to 20 deaths per year, with additional hundreds of search and rescue operations. The park's signature attractions, the Narrows hike along the Virgin River through a slot canyon, the Angel's Landing Trail, and the Subway Canyon route, each have specific and documented death patterns. The Narrows, where hikers walk upstream through the Virgin River within a slot canyon whose walls can be as close as 20 feet apart, is subject to flash flooding that can arrive within the canyon with no weather indication at the canyon bottom. Flash floods in the Narrows travel as walls of brown water and debris moving faster than a person can run, and the narrow geometry of the canyon walls eliminates the option of moving sideways to higher ground in most sections. The NPS posts daily flash flood risk advisories and closes the Narrows when upstream weather data indicates elevated risk, but the closure system requires hikers to check conditions at the visitor center or ranger station before entering, and people who enter without checking or enter when conditions deteriorate after they are already in the canyon have died there. Angel's Landing, a 5.4-mile round-trip trail that ascends approximately 1,488 feet to a summit on a sandstone fin, with the final half-mile traversing a narrow exposed ridge using fixed chains anchored into the rock, has recorded 16 confirmed deaths since the trail opened in 1926. At least 5 of those fatalities occurred between 2019 and 2023. The NPS implemented a permit lottery system in 2022 to limit the number of people on the final exposed section simultaneously. The crowding on the chains was itself a hazard, with hikers unable to pass each other on sections where the rock drops away on both sides. The permit system reduced crowding without making the ridge itself less steep, less narrow, or less exposed. The subway, a slot canyon route in Zion's backcountry requiring a separate permit, technical canyoneering skills, and cold water immersion, represents the third specific death category in the park, reflecting the hazards of committed canyon routes where neither retreat nor rescue is straightforward once a party is committed to the route. Number 8. The Grand Canyon, Arizona. The Grand Canyon kills approximately 12 people per year on average, across categories that include heat illness, falls, drowning, and aircraft accidents. The canyon is 277 miles long, up to 18 miles wide, and more than a mile deep, receives approximately 5 to 6 million visitors annually, and the specific geography of descending from the rim to the river, a vertical drop of approximately 4,380 feet from the south rim to the Colorado River, creates a heat and dehydration hazard that the NPS has been warning about explicitly for decades without reducing the mortality rate to 0. The specific heat death pattern is consistent. Hikers who descend in the morning in what feels like manageable temperature reach the inner canyon by midday when temperatures regularly exceed 110 degrees Fahrenheit, attempt to return in the hottest part of the afternoon, and experience heat exhaustion or heat stroke at points on the trail that are far from emergency response capability. The Bright Angel Trail has water stations at 1.5 miles and 3 miles from the rim, but the sections below those stations, and particularly the stretch through the inner gorge where the canyon bottom heat is most intense, are where heat casualties concentrate. The NPS posts clear warnings at every trailhead that hiking to the river and back in a single day is not recommended. The signs are read and disregarded at a rate that produces approximately 250 heat-related rescues per year in the canyon, and some percentage of those rescues result in fatalities when response time is inadequate for the stage of heat illness the victim has reached. Number 7. Half Dome, Yosemite, California. Half Dome deserves a separate entry from the broader Yosemite category because the specific death pattern at Half Dome is distinct from the general Yosemite mortality profile. Half Dome is an 8.2-mile one-way hike from the valley floor to the summit, a 4,800-foot elevation gain, with the final 400 feet of ascent on the granite dome itself accomplished using fixed metal cables anchored to the rock. The cables are the primary access to the summit and the primary site of the deaths associated with the attraction. When the granite dome is wet, from rain, from morning condensation, or from the afternoon thunderstorms that build reliably in Yosemite in the summer, the rock becomes polished granite with no friction, and the metal cables provide the only grip. People fall off Half Dome when the rock is wet. The NPS removed the cables during wet conditions for many years, but the permit system now controls access during high-risk periods. 7 people died on Half Dome between 1919 and 2009. Lightning is the other documented cause. The summit is an exposed high point in a terrain where afternoon thunderstorms are common, and the cables themselves attract lightning in proximity. The Half Dome permit system, established in 2010, limits the number of hikers on the cables per day. The system improved the crowding situation on the cables significantly. It did not eliminate the deaths. The dome is still dome-shaped, still made of wet granite, and still struck by lightning in summer afternoons. Number 6. Mount Rainier, Washington State. Mount Rainier National Park in Washington State contains the most glaciated peak in the contiguous United States, a 14,411-foot active stratovolcano with approximately 26 named glaciers covering approximately 35 square miles of the mountain's surface. Approximately 10,000 people attempt to summit the mountain each year, of whom approximately 50% succeed in reaching the summit crater rim. The mountain has recorded more mountaineering fatalities than any other peak in the continental United States. Over 400 documented deaths since climbing records began in the late 19th century. The standard summit route via the Disappointment Cleaver is a 2-day guided or independently organized climb that involves glacier travel at elevations up to 14,411 feet. The specific hazards are layered. Altitude-induced impairment at elevations that are high enough to affect judgment and physical performance, glacier travel across surfaces that contain hidden crevasses covered by snow bridges of unknown integrity, and weather that can change from clear summit conditions to complete whiteout, with winds exceeding 70 miles per hour in a matter of hours. The mountain's position as the first significant elevation barrier for Pacific storm systems means that it catches weather that the lowlands of western Washington are not yet experiencing. The crevasse hazard is the one that produces the most documented deaths among technically experienced climbers. Snow bridges over crevasses on the Carbon Glacier, the Emmons Glacier, and the Ingraham Glacier, through which all major summit routes pass, can bear the weight of a passing climber and then fail under the next one, or fail during a crossing when the bridge weakens in afternoon heat. A fall into a crevasse can be fatal immediately from the fall or subsequently from hypothermia in the cold ice environment at the bottom. The mountain also sits above the Puyallup and White River valleys, where approximately 150,000 people live within the projected path of lahars, volcanic mudflows, that geologic modeling predicts would travel at up to 45 miles per hour down the river valleys in the event of an eruption-triggered slope failure. Pierce County Emergency Management maintains lahar warning infrastructure for this specifically modeled scenario. Number 5. New River Gorge, West Virginia. New River Gorge, National Park and Preserve in West Virginia, was designated as a national park in December 2020, elevating it from national river status. The gorge contains approximately 70,000 acres of Appalachian forest, river, and sandstone cliff terrain that includes some of the most concentrated rock climbing in the eastern United States, approximately 1,400 documented climbing routes, as well as whitewater rafting on the New Rivers Class 4 and 5 rapids, and extensive hiking. The rafting mortality is the most consistently documented. The New River's whitewater section, particularly the lower gorge, contains rapids including Miller's Folly, Double Z, and Undercut Rock that have claimed lives over the decades. The Gauley River, which joins the New River system and is managed as a separate recreation area, conducts the Gauley season each fall when releases from Summersville Dam create Class 4 to 5 whitewater that draws approximately 100,000 paddlers annually. The Gauley is widely considered one of the most technically challenging commercial rafting rivers in North America, and the fall release season consistently produces fatalities. The rock climbing fatalities at New River Gorge reflect the specific hazard of sandstone cliff rock, which weathers and flakes in ways that can cause holds to fail without prior evidence of weakness, combined with the full range of human error in rigging, route selection, and protection placement that climbing fatalities reflect across all venues. Number 4. The Colorado River Rafting Corridor, Grand Canyon. The Colorado River through the Grand Canyon is a 226-mile whitewater rafting route that is one of the most sought-after river trips in the United States, with permit wait lists for private trips that have historically run decades long. Commercial trips operate throughout the primary season. The river drops approximately 2,000 feet through the canyon corridor and contains rapids rated up to Class 10, including Lava Falls, Hermit Rapid, and Crystal Rapid, that have flipped commercial rafts and caused fatalities in operations ranging from fully outfitted commercial trips to private paddling expeditions. The specific danger of the Grand Canyon River Corridor is the combination of the rapid's power, the remoteness of the canyon interior. Helicopter evacuation is the only rapid emergency response for much of the corridor, and weather or canyon geometry can prevent helicopter access for periods measured in hours to days. And the cold water temperature of the Colorado released from Glen Canyon Dam. The dam release temperature is approximately 50 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, and cold water shock and subsequent incapacitation are documented in river accident reports. Lava Falls, at River Mile 179, is widely considered the most dangerous rapid in North America, routinely run by commercial operations. The rapid has a scouting point above it, where guides assess the current formation before running. The formation of Lava Falls changes with water level, and what is runnable at one water volume is not runnable at another. People have died running it, and people have died swimming the aftermath. Number 3. Mount Washington, New Hampshire. Mount Washington is 6,288 feet, the highest point in the northeastern United States, and its summit holds the record for the highest wind speed ever recorded at a permanently staffed surface weather station, 231 miles per hour, measured on April 12, 1934, a record that stood as the world record until 1996 and remains the North American record. The mountain's extreme weather is produced by the convergence of 3 major North American storm tracks at the summit location, a geographic coincidence that makes it one of the most meteorologically active summits in the world at its modest elevation. The Mount Washington Observatory has maintained continuous weather monitoring at the summit since 1932. The statistics it has accumulated describe a place that is challenging by any measure. Average wind speed at the summit is approximately 35 miles per hour year-round. The average January temperature is approximately -4 degrees Fahrenheit, -20 degrees Celsius, with wind chill producing effective temperatures far below that. Winds exceeding hurricane force, 74 miles per hour, occur on an average of approximately 110 days per year. The summit has recorded measurable icing conditions in every month of the year. The mountain has documented over 150 hiking fatalities since systematic records began, with causes including hypothermia, falls on ice and snow, and weather-related exposure on the above tree-line terrain. The specific danger of Mount Washington for hikers is not its altitude. 6,288 feet is not especially high by Western American standards, but the combination of rapidly changing weather, the absence of shelter above tree line, and the specific topography of the summit cone that eliminates escape routes once conditions deteriorate. The tree line on the mountain is at approximately 4,400 feet, and the 1,800 feet of terrain above it offers no protection from the wind. The Tuckerman Ravine Trail is the most heavily used ascent route, passing through the ravine, which also hosts spring skiing by people who hike up carrying their equipment, and then ascending through the headwall and above treeline to the summit. The Lionhead Trail is an alternative winter route. Both pass through above treeline terrain where the margin between comfortable hiking conditions and immediately dangerous exposure can change in the time it takes a storm system to reach the summit from the west. The Mount Washington Auto Road, which has been operating since 1861, and the Cog Railway, the world's first mountain climbing cog railway, operating since 1869, both bring visitors to the summit who did not hike there and who are therefore frequently not dressed for the conditions they encounter at the top. The Summit gift shop sells bumper stickers reading, "This car climbed Mount Washington." The Summit weather does not care how you got there. Number 2. Death Valley National Park, California/Nevada. Death Valley holds the verified record for the highest reliably recorded air temperature on Earth, 130 degrees Fahrenheit, 54.4 degrees Celsius, measured at Furnace Creek on August 16, 2020, according to the World Meteorological Organization's verification process. The previous verified record was 129.2 degrees Fahrenheit, 54.0 degrees Celsius, also recorded at Furnace Creek in 2013. For context of scale, the boiling point of water at sea level is 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Human skin begins to sustain burns at sustained contact with surfaces above approximately 130 degrees Fahrenheit. The ground surface temperature in Death Valley on hot summer days regularly exceeds 200 degrees Fahrenheit. The valley floor sits at 282 feet below sea level, the lowest point in North America, and the surrounding Panamint Range and Amargosa Range create a basin that traps heat radiation reflected from the valley floor, blocks Pacific Ocean moisture that moderates temperatures elsewhere in California, and produces the specific atmospheric conditions that make Death Valley's temperatures not merely hot, but categorically extreme. Death Valley National Park receives approximately 1 million visitors annually, with the summer peak paradoxically attracting some visitors who want to experience the heat as a novelty. The park's fatality record includes deaths from heat stroke, dehydration, and vehicle breakdowns in remote sections of the park where cell phone coverage is absent. Distances to paved roads with regular traffic are substantial, and daytime temperatures mean that a broken-down vehicle transitions from inconvenience to life-threatening emergency within a few hours. The specific physiological mechanism of desert heat danger differs from humid heat danger in important ways. Dry air evaporates sweat efficiently, which means the body's thermoregulatory system functions well, right up until the point where dehydration has depleted the water supply available for sweating. At that point, core temperature rises, cognitive function degrades, and the capacity to recognize and respond to the emergency decreases. The progression from feeling warm to heat stroke can occur in under an hour in peak summer conditions. The NPS advises against hiking below 5,000-foot elevation between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. from May through October. The advisory is clear. People continue to hike at noon in July. Number 1. The Grand Canyon Overall, Arizona. The Grand Canyon's number 1 ranking integrates the full scope of its mortality, including but not limited to the heat deaths addressed at number 8, because the canyon's comprehensive fatality record across all causes makes it the deadliest tourist attraction in America by any metric that counts multiple causes simultaneously. The documented death toll since systematic records began exceeds 800 people, a number that continues to grow at approximately 12 per year. The book Over the Edge, Death in Grand Canyon by Michael P. Giglieri and Thomas M. Myers, first published in 2001 and updated in subsequent editions, catalogs every documented canyon fatality from 1869 through the publication date and categorizes the causes. The leading causes of death in the canyon, in descending order from the Giglieri-Myers analysis: falls and environmental causes, the largest category; aircraft accidents. The canyon has seen multiple helicopter and small plane accidents in its airspace; flash flooding, which can fill side canyons with no local weather warning; drowning, heat illness, and medical emergencies. The canyon has approximately 800 miles of maintained trails and approximately 1,200 miles of unmaintained routes, and the specific condition that applies to all of them is the same. The terrain is real, the weather is real, the river is real, and the canyon does not adjust to accommodate the experience level, preparation, or expectations of whoever is in it. As former Grand Canyon backcountry ranger Bill Vandergraff described the experience of backcountry rescue work, "People come here with a vacation mindset. The canyon doesn't know what a vacation is. The canyon is just the canyon. The gap between those two things is where most of the incidents happen. The canyon is the canyon. It was there before the visitors, and it will be there after them. And the specific interaction between that permanence and the human tendency to underestimate it is the reason it holds the top position on this list. 13 attractions, each generating hundreds of thousands to millions of visitors per year, and each killing some of them with a consistency that the tourism industry has not resolved. The deaths are documented. The warning signs are posted, in some cases, very prominently. The attractions remain exactly as dangerous as they were before the signs were installed, because signs do not change geology, water temperature, weather systems, or the gap between what a feature looks like from a distance and what it does to people who underestimate it up close. The best any visitor can do is read the signs before entering, take them at face value rather than as excessive caution, and recognize that in every case on this list, the people who died had no particular reason to expect they were in the last place they would ever visit. Most of them were on vacation. These are the 13 deadliest tourist attractions in America. Hit that like button and subscribe, more content like this coming.